Hello everyone, and welcome back to another anime episode review. I am the Rat, and this is the Rat's Nest. I'm joined as always by Kyle. Say hi, Kyle.
Hey everyone.
Okay, first of all, thank you all for 500 subscribers. I didn't even tell you, Kyle. Rat's Nest hit 500.
Big ol' 500.
Very big one. Will I have a 500 subscriber special coming out? Yeah, probably eventually. Also, thank you. I think I checked 1.2 thousand views on the last episode. Happy Father's Day. You love to see it.
Is that the biggest one so far?
Yeah, it's the biggest episode review. Yeah. So
wow.
So Peak Fiction.
You, everyone. That's awesome to hear.
Now we have another episode for you all. Mushoku Tensei Season 2, Episode 11. Something. Let's go home. Yeah. So.
Big fan.
First of all, if you're new here, I know everything about Mushoku Tensei. Kyle's an anime only. We're going through talking about it. Kyle leads us through the episodes and we talk about it. So there's a lot of thoughts on this episode. I think obviously a very important episode, and I will also say I'm a little limited on what I can say. I'm still going to give some of my thoughts, and I think Kyle, you and I are probably going to talk back and forth on some stuff a little bit, because you probably have a couple questions and a couple thoughts. So yeah, you know what? Let's stop lollygagging. Let's discuss, Kyle. So what did you think about this episode?
As I said right before we started recording, for some test audio, this is probably the strangest episode of the season for me. It's the one that when I walked away from it, I didn't really have a clear-cut emotion to how I feel. You know, with other episodes, I could be like, oh yeah, I felt happy in this one. I felt sad in the last one. You know, I walked out of it feeling a certain way. This is an episode where I just didn't really have a clear-cut reaction. I just felt like a lot of multiple different things with it.
That's fair. That is extremely fair.
I expected it to, you know, after the loss of someone like Paul, I expected this episode to handle more. It really kind of like, and I don't mean this in a mean way, it felt like it kind of just shafted all the stuff with Paul a little bit and like the Zenith stuff, which, I mean, they have the reasons, we'll talk about it. I don't mean that in like a negative way. It's just that it felt like, to me, it was weird how it just shifted from like, oh yeah, Paul's dead, Zenith's Casca now, to like this weird love triangle stuff. Which did have to get a payoff at some point.
Entirely fair, because that's kind of just one of my main beginning thoughts too. They did everything really. 6 minutes into the episode, Rudy and Roxy had already slept together, and Rudy was feeling better. If you ask me, that's way too fast. I kind of saw some preview images and some stuff off of Twitter as to kind of where the episode would end. I was like, there's no way it's ending there, right? And then it ended there. So I mean, I think that they paid good time to some scenes. They didn't, in my opinion, they didn't adequately show how horrible Rudy felt. I don't think.
It felt like something that, you know, looking back for the sake of time, it had to get speedrun. Like the premise is there.
Yeah, but that's the thing.
That's
the thing is that that's a scene that didn't need to get speedran. Because like earlier in season 2, and this court is especially because, you know, part 1 is season 2 and part 2 is season 2 are essentially 2 seasons, right? Let's be real, obviously. Yeah. I was more forgiving of some time stuff early on because there is stuff that just simply, like, you don't need. Like, there was something earlier in this season though that I stood on this hill. It was the Roxy stuff, showing her more in the dungeon, and we did kind of get that in the next episode. I don't think we're gonna go back probably next episode. We could, I don't know. Studio Bind could do whatever they want. They could go back next episode and show us more, but showing how devastated Rudy was with losing his parents is an extremely important plot point.
That
because it's what
quick.
ultimately makes Roxy come on to cheer him up and then makes him fall for her. It's a crucial plot point to literally light novel and web novel readers especially know what I'm yapping about. It is literally one of the single most important plot points in the series.
No, I mean I get it.
By
and
association,
it's different for me
right?
because I have your perspective too. Like I'm someone who watches the anime who has a light novel reader and like whatever other like you know more about it than I do, and you can like fill me in on what's missing. But I would say for an anime only, this episode just we haven't even gone through it in order like we normally do, but just it feels like a lot of the anime onlys are the one time where they should have just like slowed the brakes a little bit on certain things. They didn't, just to like fill in more.
This is a scenario where I like look. I'm not saying read line from the light novel. I'm almost saying that because the light novel is written really well, but you have to give it more than a scene. Because
it had less oomph to it.
Yeah, like I mean that's the entire thing is I don't think it had much oomph to it. And you wouldn't know. Let's see. Yada yada.
Well,
looking
should
through.
we
it's about
then like should we just...
No. We're discussing right here. So
okay.
How long do you think Rudy was in his room for? How long do you think he was in a depressive state for?
I mean, okay, like how many days, or like what was portrayed in the show?
What was your impression from the show? Watching the show, what would you think?
Well, I mean, I know it's kind of like a loaded question, but it didn't seem like that long. Because, granted, no matter how much time it actually was, we went from the end of last episode, like the last 2 or 3 minutes, to the first 4 or 5 minutes of this episode. So within the span of less than 10 minutes, he went into his depressive state and got out of it. So I would only assume like a couple of days, just given that context.
It's about a week. I'm trying to find the line.
Yeah, I mean, it sure didn't feel like it.
And like I don't think it gave, and that's kind of been a thing with this entire season, like with Nanahoshi and with the teleportation labyrinth. And there's the passage of time outside of what we see in the show. Does this scene work? Sure. However, I don't think it's as good as it could have been, and I don't think it's as good as it should have been.
It's one of those where
I hate to say this because I feel like I don't want to influence your opinion on this, Kyle. But like I know that me saying it is naturally going to influence your opinion. That's what happens. I'm not terribly happy with how this episode was handled. I'm gonna hold light novel 12 to a higher standard because it's one of my favorite light novels. I don't think it adequately. I don't think it was it the worst thing ever. No, but I'm not happy with how it was handled. I think
I guess
to say it was handled poorly, I'm not necessarily against wording it like that. It's fresh on me right now. Maybe on a rewatch, but just if I don't think that you're going to have. Look, I'm not going to expect 1-to-1 to the light novel, right? But the light novel has weight and oomph from the moment. You can do that in an anime format. Like the emotions you feel reading the light novel can transfer over to a visual medium like the anime. Basically the same. The way you get there might be different, but you can arrive in the same place mentally and emotionally.
Okay, quick question.
I just don't think the anime did that.
Hold on, the next episode's going to be the last episode of the season, right?
Yeah.
Do you think it would have benefited from just one more episode?
Yes, it would have. You need to spend the majority of an episode on Rudy being depressed, on the pacing of that, on his conversation with Roxy. You cut out an entire important part of it. This is...
Yeah, well...
this is one of my favorite moments of Mushoku Tensei, Kyle. Like, like Rudy coming to terms with Paul's death, right? Paul's death, the immediate aftermath of his thoughts, and then him coming to terms with it, because it's part of, you know, my funny thing with the funny perfect isekai, right, is exploring the exploring the concept of being in another world to the fullest. Paul's death is the catalyst where Rudeus finally goes back and reminisces on his past parents' death, and realizes that he never came to terms with that.
That was, that was a great scene where he's thinking back on it, and he's like, well, you know, I should have been there for their funeral. I didn't do as much as I could. And, you know, now in this other world, he finally gets to, like, he gets to do what he didn't get to do in his previous life. You know, he gets that second chance at it.
Well, no, that's the thing. The fact that you even think that shows that this scene failed.
Oh.
Because part of the crux of this part of the book is that he's saying, I made the same mistake again. And he said that in the anime. They kept the line where he's like, I made the same mistake again. But you don't get the context of that line, where he's saying, in my past life, I never valued my parents. I didn't cherish them. I never built a connection with them. I was a terrible son. And he's looking at this life and he's realizing he did the exact same thing again. He's realizing he never looked at himself as Paul's son. He never looked at himself as Zenith's son. He never looked at them as his parents. And now Paul's dead and Zenith is an invalid. And he lost his chance. He messed up. He came into this world. He thought he was doing well. He thought he's like, I'm on a good path. I'm doing well. I'm doing what I need to be doing. And he made the exact same mistake again. He didn't improve at all in that regard. And that's what he realizes. That's what crushes him. That's what Roxy pulls him out of, that makes him fall in love with her again. And that makes that whole plot more believable. And they didn't adequately show that in the anime, and it's dumb. I am not happy with how this episode was made, Kyle, and I'm sorry that I'm getting so heated about this, because now I know that you're going to look back on this and be like, oh, this is the worst episode ever. Look, it's still Mushoku Tensei. It's still peak fiction. I'm going to stay in character here. It's still peak fiction, but I am not happy with how the anime did that, because you get what I just said from the light novel. You do not get that from the anime. I'm not saying you read one-to-one the script from the anime, from the light novel. You go about it from different ways, but you should arrive at the same conclusions. So what if you have to spend a little more time on it? You should. This is one of the most important parts of the story. You didn't even get the part, I can't remember if it was before they slept together or the morning after, where Rudy looks at Roxy and says, hypothetically, what if there was someone whose parents died, they moved away far away, and then they had a chance? He describes his exact situation to her using a hypothetical situation, where he's like, what does this person do? He is completely lost. He has no clue what to do. He made the same mistake again. He forgot to cherish his parents, and now they're gone. He's not getting a second chance. He got a second chance, and he failed again. How crushing must that be? And he doesn't know where to go. And Roxy, what does she say? She said, well, I would cherish the family right in front of me. That's what gives him the step to move forward again. It's like what she did whenever she took him out on the horse at the beginning to get him out of the house. And she did it once again, and that's the crux of their relationship. She's his master, his teacher. She teaches him, she guides him. That's why he respects her so much, which I think the anime does do a good job of showing how much Rudy respects Roxy throughout the course of the show. I think that part's very clear. But you lose all of that. That line means so much more after the context of the conversation. I don't feel like that line had basically any weight at all in the anime comparatively. Now, is this still better written than 99% of isekais? Yeah, I'm going to say objectively. But it is nowhere like Mushoku Tensei, right, is peak fiction. And this, you don't get the same weight. Like I said, you don't have to go one from one for the light novel. You don't have to do that. But you have to get across the same ideas. You have to get across the same crux of the story, and they didn't. What this seems like is, oh, Paul died. I'm a bit sad about it. Roxy comes in. I'm a horn dog. We're going to sleep together. She says something kind of nice, and now I'm in love with her. After one episode, basically, right? She's been in love with him for a few more. But after one episode, after a few minutes, after 6 minutes, 6.5, 7 minutes of conversation, I'm willing to be unfaithful to my wife with Roxy. And that is such a disservice to the story, and it's such a disservice to Rudeus, and it's such a disservice to this part of the story. I I don't like it. This wasn't done well, and that makes me really, really sad, because this is the crux of season 2. This is the crux of Turning Point 3 right here, right? This is what I have forgiven some earlier stuff in the anime for, to have timing to really sink their teeth into this part of the story. And they didn't. I don't even know what they're going to cover all next episode. I know what they're going to cover, and I guess they're going to spend time on that. But you're going to neuter this part of the story for that? Is that part of the story important? Yes. Just add an extra episode or something. You can do that. That's what you can do. Just look, okay, I'm sorry if 25 episodes instead of 24 is one more. You only did 23 in season 1. Just call it catch up from that. It is ridiculous to me. It is absolutely ridiculous to me that you can't fit one more stupid episode in to get across the nuances of a character. This is already going to be a very controversial moment, as I'm certain you can probably figure out, right? You know, the whole thing of Mushoku Tensei, part of what I think is interesting is its exploration of this. The differences in morality between our world and Rudeus' new world. Because that's part of exploring being in another world to the fullest. It's another world. It's going to have different morality complexes. Some people aren't going to be happy with that. This is already a very complex part of the story that it explores. And I'm just going to say it's frankly impossible for an anime only to understand the nuances of the story. I understand how I sound right now. To be fair, you have to have a very high IQ to understand Mushoku Tensei. This part of the story, I'm not going to say that that's true, but that's true, okay? This is a complex part of the story that is critically important to it, and they flubbed it. I am mad. I am upset, Kyle. I don't know if you could tell. They did this poorly. I'm livid, honestly, because the more I'm talking, the more I'm realizing they did nothing. They did nothing here. They're wasting it. We're not going to get a Mushoku Tensei Kai. We're not going to get the Mushoku Tensei. This is it. This is what we get. That's the scene that we get. All we can say is, go read the light novel. No one reads the light novel. Only light novel readers read the light novel, Kyra. No one likes to read anymore. The only thing people read are posts on Twitter where people are going to be flaming Rudeus because they don't understand the complexity of his character. I can't even blame them, because you know what? I wouldn't either. What did you think about this episode? Did I already ask you that question?
I think so.
Look.
Okay, I'm good.
I think I'm good. I needed to get that off my chest. I needed.
So what did the anime only think of it? Huh?
I'm not happy. I don't know. Maybe my opinion on it will probably mellow as time goes on, but woof. I might get flamed. I might go back under 500 subscribers. I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking facts.
So, okay, to at least what I'm gonna say isn't gonna come anywhere near close to that level of energy, mainly because I don't have the context for what you have. I mean, you read, I'm only seeing this with fresh eyes. I'm seeing this as just like a show. You're seeing this as an adaptation. So once again, it's neat that we could have the two different perspectives on it. I would say for the rest of the episode, and we can get into detail about that, I don't particularly have, obviously the stuff talking about the content, but I would say, they paced it well. But
the rest of the episode was pretty good. I'm not going to deny that. The rest of the episode was pretty good.
But what I'm
I think it was paced well.
What I'm hearing is they essentially neutered this part of the story, because I did come into this episode fully expecting it to be kind of I was expecting the vibes of the ED episode, where it's just he's down on his luck, he's just completely in his own headspace, he can't get out of his own way. The walls are closing in. He's just having the worst time ever. And then someone steps in to help him. But like I said, he gets into this slump and gets out of it. It literally is an in and out 5-minute kind of joke or deal, where it just doesn't feel like from what I'm gathering, they didn't spend as much time as they should. I'm obviously being influenced by you here because I wonder what you said moments ago that influenced me, but they could have, they could have added more to at least do like half and half, like give it more than 5 minutes. Because the rest of the episode's fine. There's stuff to talk about the content, but he was sad. Like, this is the anime experience, the anime only experience that I had. He was sad about it. Roxy came in and talked with him. They had a little talk about it, and she like threw him on the bed, and they had sex, and that was it. He felt better. That's my experience with it, at least. I mean, they talk a lot of during the middle of it. Well, no, they don't talk that much because they only get 5 minutes of time for it. But yeah,
I mean, it's.
I understand the pain they're going through, though.
You shouldn't have to go back and read the light novel to understand what the story wants you to understand. And just objectively, you need to for this scene. And that that is ridiculous to me. That at this point, and like, I'm very emotional right now, so most of my opinions on this are probably going to mellow out. I mean, flame me in the comments if you will, but like, I mean, to get the same experience of Mushoku Tensei, to understand the story, the anime, like, this episode, it doesn't stand on its own anymore. And like, I mean, that sucks. That is
especially coming off the heels we just came off of, like the Paul episode,
and that was done great. It's heartbreaking. That's a very melodramatic word. I'm gonna live, right? The very melodramatic word, but it sucks.
It's sad.
It sucks because,
I get
like,
it, man.
The light novel is always going to be a different experience from the anime, and the anime is always going to be a different experience from the light novel. But with something as crucial as this, you should still be able to understand and get across the same themes and character development that is happening, and you just don't. You just don't, in my opinion. Who knows? Maybe there's some cracked anime only out there who got it. But
what you said earlier, I feel like that's probably going to happen, where people online, or just people in general who only watch the show, like me, who don't have someone like you to explain what's missing there. I feel like people are going to see that as it's going to be a very shallow read of the scene. Like, if anything, I feel like the most the average people could get without having like a light novel person there to explain stuff to them is just like a very simple, shallow read on it. Like, oh, he was sad, now he's not. Like, which is I guess.
He was willing to cheat on his wife after a 6-minute conversation, and that's not the case at all. And even then, what you call it. I mean, we'll talk about polygamy in Mushoku Tensei. Right, that's a whole other conversation. This episode, I've said what I wanted to say about the first part of the episode. The rest of the episode is really good.
Yeah,
I think the OST was great. I think the voice acting was great throughout the entire episode. I think that a lot of the animation was really, really good. I think that a lot of the moments taken kind of in a vacuum hit. I don't mean that to be like snarky, but like, obviously they're not going to hit as well. I kind of got the vibe from you, Kyle, watching it, that you as an anime only were kind of put off by a lot of stuff. Whenever that shouldn't be the intended reaction to the latter parts of the episode. Like the latter parts of the episode, you should feel Rudy's confliction between his love for Roxy and what she's done for him, not just now, but his entire life, and his commitment to Sylphie, and kind of the back and forth that's there. You should be able to see more of like her helping him, and we do get the little montage of that, of her helping him out, where he's lost his hand, and she's kind of become his left hand. but you as the reader / watcher should also feel that same affection towards Roxy. Already just due to how, our world works, it's going to be weird to have to conceptualize polygamy, right? And this is a whole big
Especially
topic that we'll talk about later.
In a way
right?
where, like, within universe, like, it can work. Because one thing that's one thing I do like about the show. It's like what you said earlier in your rant, where it's a different world. They have different customs. It's not going to be 1-to-1. And I just kind of assumed going in, like, whenever they went down that route, I was like, oh, okay, like father like son. And Rudeus even makes a comment about that near the end, where he's like, I guess I am like him. Where I'm like, I'm willing to give it, or I guess to say was sounds like I haven't, like I've cut it off, but anyway, I was willing to give that like a chance just to see, like, oh, okay, Paul could make it worth, and like, Lilia and Zenith, they like I was curious to see how a fictional world like this could make the concept of polygamy work. And I guess I more so just felt like it was going down that route because the narrative wanted it to. I don't know. It was weird, but I didn't really like what you said seconds ago about, like, feel like affliction. I guess I really didn't feel that all that much.
It's like
they talk about it. They travel, and then they warp back, and then they have that conversation in the snow where he's like, will you change your last name? And then she knows. She realizes what's happening, and then it ends on like that note. And it all felt like that happened too fast. All that what it should have just been, and this harkens back to what we said earlier, if they had just taken the 5 minutes or so of handling Paul's death, made that into more of a full episode, and then they had the episode after that deal with the tension of Rudeus and Roxy, and then have the 25th episode be Succession. It feels like a matter of pacing, where both of these plot lines suffer, because the beginning feels like it should have been its own episode, and the bits after feel like it just has a weird 5-minute scene attached to it.
You see, the thing is with this episode, it's a very controversial and complex subject, right? The rest of this episode, the key to it is, here is the key to making this work, right? And for what it is, I think that it does work. I think that the way the rest of the episode is presented really does work. Coming from my perspective, where I kind of understand it more. I'm so hoity-toity. No, but it's the key to it is making the audience fall in love with Roxy too. You have to understand Rudeus's perspective for these scenes to really hit home, and for these scenes to really matter, right? Because if you don't, then you're not going to. Then Rudeus saying that he loves her and being willing to, quote unquote, right? We'll talk about it. Be unfaithful to his wife, right? That all that comes with you have to understand why Rudeus loves Roxy. You have to love Roxy too. You have to be able to understand how he's doing this, because this is even from a better perspective, right? Because this is not just a series where it's a gratuitous harem, right? It's not a turn your brain off, oh whatever, and it's not it's just from a fantasy world where it's normal, so I just have to turn off my suspension of disbelief. I don't know if I got that point across exactly.
They're
well, but
trying
what
showcase
what it
someone
is.
loving two people in a more realistic way, and I do like that approach where he is conflicted. It doesn't just feel like, oh, should I cheat on my wife for like some floozy? It's like he genuinely loves these two people for very different reasons, but it's still love both ways, and it's trying to make a compromise out of love. And love is very finicky, and I do like the concept of him trying to balance this out.
Okay, so the thing with this is, right, the reason I was saying what I was before, was saying it's not a gratuitous harem, and it's not like it's just a complete fantasy world, is that we as an audience, part of the reason why Mushoku Tensei handles it so well and does it so well is that we have Rudeus to look through the lens of, because it's not just a turn your brain off, enjoy it series, right? And it's not just a hold your suspension of disbelief because it's just fantasy, everything is like this. More similar to the second one, right? It's we are seeing someone from our world with our sense of morality come to terms with it, but look at it and explore it and genuinely explore it in context of this new world's morality. Rudeus is our viewpoint in to this concept in the fantasy world. Rudeus is coming to understand it, and Rudeus's, I guess, willingness to fall in love with Roxy, that should coincide with our own understanding and acceptance of it, right? I don't think I'm using the exact words that I want to use here, but you kind of get what I'm saying here. Like, it's because someone from our world is going through this and is experiencing it. That's what makes, I think, the transition easier and more realistic and more understandable for us. That's part of what makes it a perfect isekai, because just a generic fantasy story wouldn't be able to do that, and a more whatever bog standard run-of-the-mill isekai is just gonna blob out whatever, tropes. You got the childhood friend and the first girl and the tsundere and the crazy tomboy, they're just going to bang out whatever tropes. Mushoku Tensei isn't like either of those. Understanding Rudeus' character and understanding Roxy's character, which are two, extremely important and great characters in Mushoku Tensei, are part of understanding this episode and these concepts, and are also part, and that exploration of that is part of what makes Mushoku Tensei such a perfect isekai, because it's fully exploring the concept of being in another world.
Yeah.
And so
I would probably. Oh, what?
Yeah, I think that was my point. I probably went off on a tangent in there and lost myself, but
that's a good point. And I guess to kind of respond to that, you said like you have to love Roxy, or the viewer has to be able to like Roxy enough to where they could believe that this is happening. I like Roxy. It's just it did feel like maybe my expectations were a little different. I expected more of not a blow up, but I expected something bigger to come from it, because this entire time, literally, this is one thing that
there's something bigger to come of it too, but
on and off again throughout these episodes, I've been like bitching, complaining, like, can he just tell her that he's married already? Because the signs were so obvious that she was like in love with him, and I was like, oh, this isn't really. I was kind of thinking like, it's not gonna work out. It's not gonna work out that well because he's married, and then he's just out of nowhere he says it, and in the episode I was like, fuck it, finally he says it. It's just like, oh yeah, I know. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it also didn't show the scene where she figured it out, and everyone was talking about how to cheer him up.
That's a scene?
In the light novel, we get to see her learn that he's married.
Can I just read this light novel where this like
dude I have great news for you. I have all 26 volumes. I'll lend them all to you right now.
I'll
actually lend them to you one at a time, and then as you finish them, we can go through.
At the very least, I think it'd be interesting to just read the one where this episode was adapted from, and then just talk about it at some point, because
I feel like you would understand my reaction earlier if you read it.
Yeah, like, all right, watching Mushoku Tensei, I felt like, obviously, watching all of Mushoku Tensei season 1 and 2, this isn't my first time. This is my first rodeo watching adaptations of stuff. I know that with the anime, you're not gonna get everything. You're not gonna be able to perfectly adapt everything the author wants. I get it, and I felt like for the most part that's been okay watching Mushoku Tensei. Like, I felt like I got the gist of what I've needed. Like in previous episode topics, we've talked, and you said, oh, here's like one or two minor details, and I've been like, oh, okay, neat. Like little things like Banana Hoshi at the party with like chips or something. I don't know. Just little small details that maybe got cut out. But with this episode, it feels like the first time it's maybe other episodes are missing something major. Maybe they do like one or two things that are like off, but it's like, oh, okay, the episode as a whole was still good. It recovered on its feet. This one, just from I'm more so curious to see how it should have been, because and it probably is just your influence, I get it, but I would say, like, I kind of wish that the early stuff had more screen time, more to shine, because it just went from, he recovered from his dad dying. It felt like way too quick. I mean, he's been in worse headspaces for less periods of time for things that were lesser of magnitude in the show, like this feels like it should have been the big one, and it wasn't.
It should have.
And because of that, it's made me feel odd about Rudeus and Roxy. Like, I'm not opposed to them exploring this idea. I'm just more so off-put when I feel like, from what you said, there should have been a proper cushioning to it. Because I still feel like
I'm not gonna pretend like in the light novel, the scene that I was talking about takes up half of it. I mean, like, page count wise, it's a relatively small scene. It's an average scene page count wise, right? If not on the small side. But it's the way that it's presented. It's the words that are said. It's the flow of the conversation. It's the concepts explored, and it's the characters being developed that make the scenes what it is. And the anime didn't do it well.
Not a big fan.
So I'm not gonna say that we needed 3 episodes to explore this, and I'm also not gonna say that the light novel spells everything out. You still gotta read between the lines, but the anime doesn't give you lines to read between. And again, I'm not saying it needs to be one-to-one with the light novel. You don't need to just read the light novel off as a script. You could, and it'd be good. But you don't have to, but you have to get across the same ideas, and it didn't. It's very simply didn't get across the same ideas. And, okay, you have limited time. You don't need a full episode for this scene. You just need more than the 7 minutes. And I'm not even going to say you should have done more with the 7 minutes. It's an impossible ask to get the emotions and the feelings and the thoughts and the concepts explored in that amount of time. That's just simply impossible, I think. Could maybe the best writer of all time do it? Sure. It's theoretically possible. But you need to dedicate more time than you did to it. And that's the crux of what I'm getting at. You need to include some more of Rudeus being upset over Paul's death. You need to include some more of his thoughts that did, and you need to present the thoughts that he already thought clearer, kind of more like the light novel did. Again, not saying you have to read from the light novel, but I'm saying that you should make sure that you're getting the same kind of concept explored across. And you need to have the similar weight to the light novel. And you can do that in different ways than just words. Anime is a visual medium. Like, use more visuals for it. I don't know. You don't have to read one from one for the light novel, but you have to get across the same ideas and concepts, and the anime didn't do that, in my opinion. And who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm the biggest numbskull of all time. Maybe everyone loves this episode, and it's great, and everyone in the Mushoku Tensei community is like, who's this nerd? Way overreacting. I think the scene was good. I think it was done well. I'm in the Church of Roxy and whatever. You know me, notorious Roxy hater. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone on my island here, but it's an island I will die on. So that's what I'll say about this episode.
I can stow away on your island for a bit.
No, I don't want you to stow away on my island, Kyle. I want you to come into Mushoku Tensei with as normal of whatever as possible. Only thing I will say, this will be my final thoughts for the episode. Then Kyle, if you have any final thoughts on the episode, you can say it after. Next season, they better get it together. I'm not going to not watch the Mushoku Tensei anime, right? That's just objectively not going to happen. I'm not going to not watch it. If they flub Turning Point 3, I will probably kill myself.
You mean 4, right?
If they flub Turning Point 4, I will probably kill myself. I'm already a fake fan. I should just give up the series. I should just sell all my life. I should just burn my house down, honestly. I'm already a fake fan.
I mean, it's over one episode, and again, it's hard for me to say because I'm not a light novel reader here. But for, again, the full anime experience of the episode, it was fine. I didn't hate it, but it just felt weird all the way through. Like, he got over the death of someone like Paul too quickly as it was portrayed, and it just felt like it jumped headfirst into this weird polygamy stuff, and that's not even like. I kind of wish also we had a little bit more with Zenith. I don't know, like, I don't know how much more there is in the light novel, but it just felt like, okay, well, he's over it with his dad, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm over it with my mom too. Like they spent, like, he died, Paul died, and she's just not mentally there. Like, that is such a tragedy where, the characters, like, they get the thing they were looking for. They've spent all this time, they got her, right? But then, the monkey's paw curls, and it's like, oh, well, now she has to be taken care of forever. It just felt like, at least for me, that just kind of happened quickly too. It's like, why was it there? Why was she in this crystal? What was that thing? Why was it guarding her? A lot of questions that might get answered, but it just feels like a lot of.
To be fair, some of those are supposed to be mysteries.
What?
To be fair, some of those are supposed to be mysteries.
Okay, cool. All right, yeah. It just, at the very least, it felt like Rudeus handling it. Lily was like, I take care of it. You have your own life. And he's like, oh, you're right. And then it just, cuts to the next scene. And then it's like, all right, on with going back home. And then you have the stuff with them talking about how they love each other, which doesn't feel like it had as much prelude or build up as it should have, because the thing that, like, the turning point within the turning point was them sleeping together, and that only happened after like 5 minutes. It's like, oh, I'm sad about my dad dying. Hey, don't be sad. Okay, you're right. And then they had sex. It's just,
like I said,
I can't even imagine how tragic that has to be for, like, the thing that you were highly expecting for an adaptation just going the way it did. Because
like I said, does it work? Sure, but it's serviceable, and that's the sad thing. You never want your favorite series to have stuff that's just serviceable. It's fine. Does it work? Sure. Can you understand why Rudy loves Roxy? Sure. Do you feel anything? No. Okay, I've spoken enough. I've dug myself into a big enough hole. I've already lost all my fans. That's fine. Not like I had any fans.
You know what? I don't think you're gonna lose fans over it. I kind of want to hear from you, the people, you guys, you cool guys, you cool 500 little critters out there.
502
I kind of want to
even.
hear. Ooh, I kind of want to hear from a lot of people, like, what they thought about it.
It'll be like 389 after this.
I want to hear, like, everyone's different thoughts on it. I want to hear if people like the episode, if they didn't, if they agree with us, if they don't agree with us. I just want to hear everyone's thoughts. It'll be interested to hear what everyone has to say.
All right. Well, another way too long episode is completed. So thank you for watching. If you're this far in the video, then obviously there's time. Make sure to like, subscribe, leave a comment telling us what you thought about this episode. You very clearly know what we thought about it. Thank you all for watching. Certainly hope you all enjoyed. We will see you all next time for the final episode of Mushoku Tensei this season. It feels really weird. It zoomed by, but we'll talk about it then. Bye-bye.
Bye.